What's up, you guys? I'm Rachel Demita and welcome to the Courtside Club. Unfortunately, today we have a bit of a heavier topic because it was just reported that a man was arrested and charged with stalking after allegedly sending Caitlin Clark threats. This man has been charged with felony stalking after he allegedly sent numerous threats and sexual charged messages to Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark. Michael Lewis, the suspect in question, traveled to Indianapolis from Texas. Authorities identified him through his IP address. It is alleged that this man was direct messaging Caitlin Clark and also tweeting at her on X. And he even said at one point that he had been driving around your house 3 times a day. So prior to placing him into custody, police met with Lewis last week about the threats along with his presence in Indianapolis. And he said that he was in the city for a vacation and described his messages as a fantasy type thing that should have been the first red flag of it all, if not the second, third, fourth, or 37th red flag. He said that Lewis continued to send Clark messages even after speaking with local authorities. So it is clear that there was something wrong. There's something wrong with this man. He is clearly not all right in the head and he is clearly dangerous. This is awful. I hate hearing stories like this. We heard one just recently, just a few months ago, about Paige Becker and her stalker as well. Unfortunately, this is something that so many celebrities have to deal with. Before this news broke, we had not truly heard from Caitlin Clark about how any of the discourse online, the hate that she received online, things like this. Like, she has never openly come out and talked about any of these things. She has never complained about these sort of things. And she sure as heck has not responded to any trolling on social media. Now, that is one way to go about things. And that's the way that I think that everyone should go about things. Even me, myself, having to have dealt with things like this. I think the absolute best way to deal with trolls, to deal with someone who's threatening you, to deal with any of these things is to not respond, do not engage, and keep receipts of those things. And I'm sure that's what she was doing here. The fact that they knew that he was in Indianapolis, the police met with him. Like, I'm sure that she had been keeping receipts of these weird things that are probably happening to her. This is probably, unfortunately, not the only person who, I hope it's the only person who goes as far as to actually stalking her. But I'm sure on the daily, she gets weird messages, she gets hateful messages, she gets trolling, she gets all of those things on her social media accounts. She is a global star. With that comes so many incredible things, but it also comes with stuff that people who are not in the public eye, they can't even really understand the level of just attention that you get from so many different people. And like I said, we have not heard from Caitlin Clark complaining about any of these things. And a lot of people on social media, in the media, chalk that up to the fact that Caitlin Clark wasn't receiving any threats, wasn't receiving any hate, and it was all Caitlin Clark fans going at everyone else. They were the ones making the death threats. They were the ones trolling on social media. They were the ones doing everything. Her fans were the problem. It's just so interesting now seeing that this obviously comes to light in the absolute worst way that it possibly can. Nobody, and I'm telling you, no one on this planet, especially women, do not want to deal with a stalking situation. It's one of the scariest things. Like, that is not something that I would wish on anyone, because you never know as to what level that could go. Does it go from just them having this little fantasy type thing online where they're sending these cute little messages and pretending like you guys are friends? Then it goes to circling your house. What? Then it goes to breaking into your house. Like, there are so many levels. We have seen things play out in the worst possible way. So many people within the WNBA sphere just thought that she was the golden child and she was only getting praise and she was only getting all of these things, when behind the scenes, I'm sure, and I've talked about in many of videos, I feel like she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders while just trying to play basketball as a 22-year-old in her first year in the league, and just taking over the sport in general, becoming the face of the league that young, and just dealing with so much spotlight, so many people talking about her, the hate, the love, all of the things coming down on her. But so many people just assumed that everything was fine and dandy and rainbows and butterflies in Caitlin Clark world. Nonetheless, she is dealing with things like this behind the scenes. And that's even some advice that I would give to some of these rising stars within the WNBA, rising stars on social media. There's this weird dynamic that you start to have as an influencer or with a celebrity on social media, because, and I know this firsthand, the more that you share on social media, the better your social media posts do, the more, a lot of times, more brand partners you'll get, the more money that you will make. And your fans are always going to demand more, more, more. I want to see more. Where are you going here? What outfit are you wearing here? What city are you in? And that is something that I would just caution really anyone in the public eye, and especially girls. Be careful of what you are constantly sharing online. And Caitlin is someone who seems to be very private online. And I think she's doing that, one, because she seems to just be like a ball is life type of girl. And she's just, ball is life and golf is life sometimes. And so she's really just only sharing that element of her. But I would caution those who are taking more of like an influencer route. You don't need to post in real time. You can post after you leave an event, after you leave a place. You can post a couple days later. You don't have to post. Like Snapchat is also a big one that I feel like a lot of young creators are on, and they're posting hundreds of posts a day, and you can make a lot of money on Snapchat. Trust me, I know. But fans will continue to demand more, demand more. What are you doing? Show us your family. Show us your boyfriend. What are your friends doing? What city are you in? What was your vacation like? What hotel are you staying at? All of these things, when creeps come around like this, or when there's people who don't have great intentions, all the money in the world, all of the fame, all of that is not going to matter. I would just put that caution out there from somebody who literally, like, I have experience, maybe not to the same level as some of the superstars are. I've never had that level of fame, but I have had things that have happened to me and things that have come up where I learned these things when I was younger. My personal experience, and I'm not sharing any of this with you guys so you can feel sorry for me. I'm totally fine. I'm not doing this for sympathy or to be a victim, anything. It's interesting that one of the most uncomfortable interactions that I had with a fan, who I found out later was a fan, but maybe was a little bit more obsessed, actually happened at the Indiana Pacers practice facility, which is also where the Indiana Fever practice. So I was interviewing Paul George, I believe it was like in 2016 or 17, and I was interviewing him there, and obviously there was very tight security there because Paul George is there, and that's like, nobody can get through security. We had to go through security. The practice facility was closed down for the day. No one was really there. We were just interviewing Paul George, doing an on-court interview with him. And after the shoot wrapped, I was leaving, and myself and my crew was leaving, and there was somebody who was in the lobby of Gainbridge, and they came up to me and asked for a photo. And now I'm thinking that they worked there, obviously, because nobody else was in this facility besides my crew for the show that I was working on and the workers there and essentially security. So I took a photo with the person, and then after, he started to say things to me that weren't appropriate. And it was at that moment that I knew, like, this person had somehow gotten into this facility and knew that I was here, and told me he knew that I was here because I'd posted about it. I had posted that I was going to be in Indianapolis. And I actually didn't even post that I was going to be at the practice facility. I just said that I was in Indianapolis, and I guess they just assumed that because I work in the basketball space. But that was an interaction that was really uncomfortable, and luckily nothing came out of that. I think it's interesting that that was also in Indiana, and this is by no means to throw shade on any security, on anything in Indiana, but it's ironic in a sense. The other thing that I will also share is that from the threats perspective and from the stalking perspective, I do think that we could do better. And it's maybe not even the WNBA and these sports leagues. I think it's just America as a whole. When I was dealing with another instance where I was getting threats, and they were, I would say, sexually violent in nature is probably the right way to phrase it. I'm getting all of these threats, and a lot of them were coming in from one specific person. And I shared that with the social media platforms that I was receiving these threats on, and it was coming on Instagram, on Twitter, and also on YouTube. One thing that's always stood out to me is the fact that I was told, until they make a threat on your life, there's really not much that we can do. And this is when we're talking to police and things. I was also living in Los Angeles at the time, so I don't know if if I'm in Texas now, if it would be different, if the laws are different in Indiana. But this person was pretty much making all of the threats except that, but because he did not say that, we couldn't do much. And that is one of the issues when you become a public figure. Like, I'm sure, unfortunately, it got to the point where this man had to be like circling Caitlin's house 3 times before law enforcement really acted on it. And that was the thing that kind of sucked in my situation as well, because I had this person even saying like, I know where you live, it's a short flight, like I can be there, I'll be outside. They were saying these sorts of things, and from my knowledge, they didn't ever come to my home, I don't think. But even though I was documenting all of those things, the best thing that I could do was I got a private investigator on this person to, like, just so I would know exactly what this person looked like, their age, their height, their weight, what city they lived in, those sorts of things. And then for the next 6 months or so, different events and things that I was going to, I would have to let the security or my crew or whoever know that this person is making these sorts of threats. And so I would recommend, and I do hope, and I don't know because I'm not there, I would hope that the WNBA, that Unrivaled even, that these leagues do have something in place. And that was actually what I was screaming from the rooftops through this entire season, because so many players were saying, oh, the trolls, everyone on social media, and a lot of things that were being said on social media weren't like this sort of situation that we're talking about today. It was just basketball things. Like, you see it in the NBA when people are making fun of whoever for shooting an air ball or whatever. It was those sorts of things. But I do think that the stuff that could elevate into something more, or if it's somebody who is being absolutely obsessive over things, what is that floating in the air? If it's someone being really obsessive over things, if it is somebody who is constant, and especially if they ever mention, I know where you live, or I want to do this, like all of these things need to be documented. And that's something where there has to be a department within the WNBA, especially being a women's sports league, where they can have their own private investigators on these people and be aware if these people are coming into arenas, because I promise you, as the league continues to grow, it is something that unfortunately comes with being a celebrity. And the only way to combat it at this point in time, until we can figure out how to make people not suck in the world, is just heighten security and take some of these, what's the word I'm trying to say? Like, some of these concerns very seriously. Anyway, you guys, I just wanted to report on that story today. So scary and awful. And I really hope that this, not only this, but also what happened with Paige Bueckers, is definitely a wake-up call for the NCAA, for the WNBA, for Unrivaled even, to make sure that they are protecting their players in this capacity. I hope the Indiana Fever also provide her with more security. I'm sure that she has security, but it wouldn't hurt if the Indiana Fever can also just help their players and provide them with security if they need it. Those costs can be very expensive, and that is something, if the NBA needs to step in on that, that should be highest priority. So with that, you guys, I hope that every single WNBA player, every single NCAA player continues to be safe and on high alert. That's all I have to say about that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Of course, thumbs up this video if you enjoyed it, and click that little subscribe button, because we upload new videos every single week. And with that, you guys, I'll see you next time. Uina.